The day my sister called me the struggling one, I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. It hurt in a place so deep that I thought my heart would never feel whole again. I stood outside the grand wedding venue wearing the only dress I could afford. It was a simple, deep green dress I had bought 2 years earlier for a women's fellowship celebration at church. I had ironed it 3 times the night before, hoping it would look new. My shoes were clean, but they had been repaired twice. I carried a small gift wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a handmade family photo album I had spent weeks putting together. As I looked at the beautiful decorations, I whispered to myself, "Today is my little sister's special day. Nothing will ruin it." My name is Amara. I am a 46-year-old Black woman born and raised in a small town near Kisumu in Kenya. Life had never been easy for me. After our parents passed away, I became more than an older sister. I became another parent. While my younger sister Nadia went to university, I stayed behind. I worked long hours selling tomatoes, onions, and leafy greens in the local market. Every coin I earned helped pay her school fees, rent, books, and meals. I never complained because I believed her success would become our family's success. For many years, Nadia thanked me. She would call every weekend. "One day I'll take care of you," she always promised. I believed every word. But life changed after she became successful. She moved to Canada, built a company, bought a beautiful home, and surrounded herself with wealthy friends. Our phone calls became shorter. Then they became rare. Sometimes months passed before I heard her voice. When she announced she was getting married, I cried with happiness. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," I told her. She sounded happy. "I'm glad you're coming." Those were the last warm words she spoke to me before the wedding. As I walked toward the entrance, I saw guests arriving in expensive gowns and perfectly tailored suits. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Everyone looked confident and elegant. I took a deep breath and walked inside. Nadia spotted me almost immediately. For a second, I expected her to run over and hug me. Instead, her eyes slowly moved from my shoes to my dress. Her smile disappeared. She walked toward me, but not with excitement, with embarrassment. She leaned close enough that only I could hear. "Amara, you actually wore that?" I looked down at my dress. "I thought it looked nice." She forced a laugh. "My friends are all successful people. You could have at least dressed like you belong here." I felt my cheeks grow warm. "I did my best." Then she looked toward 2 bridesmaids standing nearby. Without lowering her voice, she said, "This is my older sister. She's always been the struggling one in the family." The women smiled politely, but I could see the uncomfortable look in their eyes. I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. Still, I refused to cry. I simply handed Nadia the wrapped gift. "I made this for you." She barely looked at it. "Oh, thank you." One of the wedding planners called her away before she opened it. I stood alone near the entrance, wondering if I should leave before the ceremony even began. That was when I noticed the groom. His name was Elias. He had been speaking with his best man across the room, but now he wasn't talking anymore. He was looking directly at me, not with pity, not with judgment. There was something else in his eyes. Confusion, as if he had just witnessed something he couldn't understand. For a brief moment, our eyes met. He glanced at the photo album still resting in Nadia's hands, then back at me. Something about that simple gift seemed to catch his attention. At that moment, I had no idea that before the wedding day was over, one quiet conversation would uncover a family truth that my sister had spent years trying to hide. I quietly walked away from the entrance and found a seat in the last row of the ceremony hall. From there, no one would notice me. Maybe that was for the best. The hall was beautiful. White roses covered every table, and soft music filled the room. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above us, making everything look like something from a movie. I watched guests laugh together. They greeted Nadia with hugs and expensive gifts. Many of them looked like company owners, physicians, and attorneys. I folded my hands in my lap and reminded myself why I had come. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there because she was still my sister, even after everything. As the ceremony was about to begin, someone gently touched my shoulder. "Excuse me, ma'am." I turned around. It was Elias, the groom. He smiled politely. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." I quickly stood up. "Oh, no. Congratulations on your wedding." "Thank you," he replied. Then he looked toward the gift still sitting on a nearby table. "Did you make that photo album yourself?" I nodded. Yes, every page. His face softened. "May I see it for just a moment?" Before I could answer, one of the wedding planners handed him the album. Elias slowly opened it. The first page showed two little girls standing beside a weathered brick house in western Kenya. Nadia was smiling. I was holding her hand. He turned another page. There was a picture of me wearing a faded market apron while Nadia stood proudly in her school uniform. Another page showed her graduation day. I was standing in the background. My clothes were worn, but my smile was bigger than anyone else's. Elias remained silent. He continued turning the pages carefully. Every picture told the same story. I was always working. Nadia was always studying. On the last page, I had written a short note. Our parents taught us that family is life's greatest treasure. I have always been proud to watch you chase your dreams. No matter where life takes us, you will always be my little sister. I pray your marriage is filled with kindness, honesty, and love. Elias read the words twice. Then he looked at me. You made all of this? Yes. It's beautiful. I smiled. It isn't expensive. He shook his head. The most valuable gifts rarely are. Before I could respond, someone called his name. Elias, the ceremony is starting. He closed the album gently. Thank you for sharing this with me. As he walked away, I noticed he looked thoughtful, almost troubled. The ceremony began a few minutes later. Nadia looked stunning in her white gown. Everyone stood as she walked down the aisle. I stood too. Despite everything that had happened, tears filled my eyes. I remembered the little girl who used to run home from school, laughing because she had earned the highest marks in her class. I remembered staying awake late at night, sewing torn uniforms so she wouldn't feel embarrassed. I remembered skipping meals so she could have enough money for books. Watching her walk toward her future should have been one of the happiest moments of my life. Instead, there was a quiet ache in my heart. When the minister asked if anyone wished to share a few words before the reception, several family members clapped politely. Then I noticed Elias looking toward me again, not once, but several times. He wasn't admiring my appearance. He wasn't being disrespectful. It looked as if he had just realized that an important part of Nadia's story had never been told. And deep inside, I began to wonder what exactly my sister had told him about the woman she had once called her greatest blessing. After the ceremony, everyone moved into the reception hall. The room was filled with music, laughter, and the sound of glasses being raised in celebration. Servers walked from table to table carrying elegant meals. Guests gathered around Nadia and Elias, offering hugs and warm wishes. I stayed near the back of the room. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I quietly sipped a glass of water and watched the celebration from a distance. Even though my heart still hurt, I prayed that my sister would have a happy marriage. As I stood there, Elias walked over once again. Amara, he said gently, would you mind sitting with me for a few minutes before dinner is served? I looked surprised. Of course. We found 2 empty chairs near a large window overlooking the garden. The sounds of the reception faded into the background. Elias smiled kindly. I hope you don't think I'm asking strange questions. I gave a small smile. Not at all. He took a slow breath. When Nadia talks about her childhood, she usually says she worked very hard to build everything on her own. I remained silent. He continued, but after seeing your photo album, I feel like there's a part of the story I've never heard. For a moment, I looked down at my hands. I didn't want to embarrass my sister on her wedding day, so I chose my words carefully. Your wife has worked very hard, I said softly. She earned every degree she received. Elias nodded. I know that. I smiled. But no one succeeds completely alone. He listened quietly. When our parents died, Nadia was only 16. I was already an adult. I left my own dreams behind because someone had to keep our family together. I spoke without bitterness. I sold vegetables before sunrise. I washed clothes for neighbors. I cleaned homes during weekends. Sometimes I worked 3 jobs at once. Elias's eyes never left mine. I wasn't looking for praise, I continued. I simply wanted my little sister to have opportunities I never had. He looked down at the photo album resting on the table. So, you paid for her education? I nodded gently. As much as I could. And she never told me that. I smiled sadly. Maybe she wanted you to see her strength. He looked thoughtful. But helping someone doesn't make them weak. His words touched my heart. For the first time that day, I felt truly seen. Just then, an elderly woman approached our table. She smiled brightly when she saw me. Amara! I stood and hugged her. She was Mama Acheng, our old neighbor from Kenya. She had traveled to attend the wedding. She looked at Elias and laughed softly. You've been talking to the real hero of the family. Elias raised his eyebrows. The real hero? Mama Acheng nodded without hesitation. If Amara hadn't sacrificed everything, Nadia would never have finished school. This woman practically raised her sister. The whole neighborhood knows that. I quickly interrupted. Please, today is Nadia's day. But Mama Acheng gently held my hand. My dear, telling the truth doesn't take anything away from anyone. Elias looked stunned. He glanced from Mama Acheng to me, then back toward the head table where Nadia was laughing with her wealthy friends. His smile slowly faded, not because he was angry, because he was beginning to realize that the woman he had married had hidden one of the most important chapters of her life. Across the room, Nadia noticed us talking. The smile on her face disappeared. Without saying a word, she placed her glass on the table and began walking straight toward us. For the first time that day, I saw something I had never seen in my sister's eyes before. It wasn't embarrassment. It was fear. Nadia stopped in front of our table, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. There you are, she said, looking at Elias before turning to me. Everyone's waiting for us. No one moved. The silence between us felt heavier than all the music in the room. Elias stood slowly. Nadia, he said calmly, may I ask you something? She laughed nervously. Of course, what's wrong? He picked up the photo album I had made. Why didn't you ever tell me about Amara? Her smile faded. I told you about her. No, Elias replied gently. You told me you had an older sister. You never told me she raised you. Nadia looked away. There wasn't much to tell. Mama Acheng quietly excused herself, sensing this was a family conversation. I wished I could disappear. This wasn't how I wanted my sister's wedding day to be remembered. I spoke softly. Elias, please. Today is your wedding day. Let this go. He looked at me with kindness. I can't pretend I didn't learn something important today. Nadia crossed her arms. So now everyone thinks I'm an ungrateful person. No one said that, Elias answered. Then why are we talking about this now? His voice remained calm. Because honesty matters. She sighed deeply. You don't understand. Help me understand. Nadia was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. When I came to Canada, I wanted a fresh start. Everyone around me had impressive stories. Successful parents, wealthy families, business connections. She looked at the floor. I felt ashamed of where I came from. Her words stung, but I stayed silent. I didn't want people to picture a dusty village or my sister working in the market just so I could stay in school. Elias frowned. So you erased that part of your life? I thought I had to. She wiped away a tear before it could fall. I spent years trying to become someone different. Elias gently shook his head. The woman who sacrificed for you wasn't something to hide. The room around us continued buzzing with laughter, completely unaware of the quiet conversation taking place in the corner. Nadia slowly turned toward me. For the first time that day, she really looked at me. Not at my simple dress, not at my worn shoes, at me. Her eyes filled with tears. I was cruel to you today. I smiled faintly. It hurt. I know. She covered her face with her hands. I don't know when I became this person. I stepped closer. Success changes many people. She looked at me through her tears. Did you hate me when I called you the struggling one? I answered honestly, no. She looked surprised. I was heartbroken. Those words seemed to break something inside her. She began crying quietly. I'm so sorry, Amara. I placed my hand on her shoulder. I never wanted your money. She nodded. I know. I never wanted expensive gifts. Another nod. I only wanted my little sister. Nadia couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She wrapped her arms around me, crying like the young girl I had comforted so many years ago after our parents died. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Elias stood nearby, giving us the space we needed. When Nadia finally stepped back, she looked at him. I should have told you everything. He smiled gently. The truth doesn't make me love you less. She lowered her head. It makes me ashamed of myself. He reached for her hand. Then let today be the day you stop pretending. Nadia squeezed his hand tightly. Then she looked toward the stage where hundreds of guests were waiting for the reception speeches. She took a deep breath. There is something I need to tell everyone. I quietly shook my head. You don't have to. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Yes, this time I do. Nadia slowly walked toward the stage, still holding Elias's hand. The guests stopped talking as she reached for the microphone. Some thought she was about to thank everyone for coming. Others expected a cheerful wedding speech. Instead, she stood silently for a few moments, taking a deep breath. I need to say something, she began, her voice trembling. The room became completely quiet. Today should be the happiest day of my life. But before this day ends, I have to tell the truth. She looked across the room until her eyes found mine. My sister Amara, would you please come here? I shook my head. I didn't want to stand in front of everyone, but Elias smiled warmly and nodded. It's okay, he said softly. With slow steps, I walked to the stage. Nadia reached for my hand before turning back to the guests. When many of you met me, you believed I built my life completely on my own. She paused. That isn't true. She pointed gently toward me. This woman is my older sister. After our parents passed away in Kenya, she gave up her own dreams so I could keep mine. The room was silent. While I was studying, she woke up before sunrise to sell vegetables. She worked in other people's homes. She skipped meals so I could buy books. She carried burdens that I never fully understood. Tears rolled down her cheeks. And today, her voice broke. I looked at her simple dress and called her the struggling one. Several guests lowered their heads. Others looked at me with gentle eyes. Nadia wiped away her tears. But the truth is, I was the struggling one. I had money. I had success. I had beautiful clothes. But somewhere along the way, I became poor in gratitude. The room remained completely still. She turned toward me. Amara, I'm so sorry. I cannot give you back the years you sacrificed. I cannot erase the pain I caused today. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life being the sister you always deserved. I couldn't stop my own tears anymore. I stepped forward and hugged her tightly. I forgave you long before today, I whispered. She cried even harder. I don't deserve you. I smiled through my tears. None of us deserve grace, but we all need it. The guests began clapping. Not loudly, not wildly, just a warm, heartfelt applause that filled the room with kindness instead of judgment. Elias walked over and wrapped one arm around both of us. I think, he said with a smile, this is the most beautiful moment of our wedding. Everyone laughed softly. The heaviness in the room slowly disappeared. Later that evening, Nadia finally opened the photo album. She turned each page carefully, smiling through her tears. When she reached the final page, she closed the book and hugged it against her chest. This, she said quietly, is the most valuable wedding gift I received. Months later, she visited Kenya with Elias. Together, we walked through the market where I had spent so many years working. She didn't hide from anyone anymore. Instead, she proudly introduced me wherever we went. This is my sister, she would say with a smile, the woman who made my life possible. Those words were worth more than anything money could ever buy. Looking back now, I realize something important. True wealth isn't measured by the size of your house, the clothes you wear, or the money in your bank account. True wealth is found in gratitude. It lives in love that asks for nothing in return. It grows through sacrifice, forgiveness, and the courage to tell the truth. My sister once called me the struggling one. But in the end, we both discovered that the richest person in the room is the one whose heart is full of love, kindness, and grace.